There we go. We're live. We got some organ music, the beginning of Swing Swing, All American Rejects. And we got the ultimate swinger here. And I don't mean that in the weird way. Steve Cotter, swinging the kettlebell, the kettlebell guy. And again, we've been following each other for some time on social media. I said, hey, let's jump on. Let's get in a conversation. That's where social media can kind of become a little bit more human, hopefully. This guy's well established. He's coming to us from San Diego County. So yeah, Steve, how's the weather over there in San Diego?
For us, it's a little bit overcast by our normal state. Sun will peek out every few minutes.
Yeah, I miss it, man. I was probably a couple miles north of you before we moved here to Colorado, but so yeah, we're talking about all things kettlebell again. This you've written a book specifically about kettlebells as well, Kettlebell Training.
Kettlebell Training by Human Kinetics is the publisher.
Yeah. Anyone who knows anything about fitness or healthcare probably knows Human Kinetics is one of the top publishers in that space. So yeah, pretty big deal to have you on here. So again, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
So want to jump right into it. I mean, thinking about this leading into it, for anyone listening, again, kettlebells. I know you don't want to just make it about kettlebells, but I kind of want to take advantage of the fact that you're here and say, somebody who hasn't tried to do a kettlebell swing, or maybe they've done a kettlebell swing. And again, I've seen some wretched form of people just trying to do kettlebell swings and different functional fitness classes, let's say. And so how does somebody approach that and minimize their injury? Should they seek out someone specialized in kettlebell training? I've done a couple of kettlebell certifications over the years myself, but I don't know. I would still certainly defer to someone like you. Again, I have a good understanding of human movement. I would say I've spent over $500,000 on the human body. And we were talking a little bit about your training before we came online. Do you have any general advice for somebody looking into, should I give kettlebells a try? Should I get kettlebells in my garage and maybe make that a primary form of training?
I value the timeless. And so I want everyone to understand that we want to look at this from the perspective of the entire lifespan. For me, a kettlebell is a great value as a training tool. And the greater value is, I've been working with kettlebells and teaching kettlebells for more than 20 years now. So from the beginning of the modern history. Okay, so
tell us a little bit about that. When did those start going?
Well, Pavel Tsatsouline. So the short story, kettlebells have been around a couple hundred years. It was an official weight and measure from the Russian Tsarist times, right? And it was brought to America. The first book was released, and the first program was released was called the Russian Kettlebell Challenge by Pavel Tsatsouline, Dragon Door Publications. So I was one of the early adapters, and if you talk about the history, I get to be in that history because in the beginning, we're figuring this out, and there's one game in town, and but we're talking that was more than 20 years ago, 2001. Now we're 2024. Kettlebells is ubiquitous. Pardon my pronunciation. and so in the beginning, it's like you go back 20 years. What's a kettlebell? Now they're in movies, and so the point being that the timeless, getting back to the response, the timeless is the techniques and the principles that stay with you across the lifespan. So as opposed to, say, an 8-week transformation where, okay, I'm going to do an 8-week transformation. And so what is good advice for the day one is also good advice for 20 years later, right? And that has to do with breathing and body mechanics. So fundamentals: posture, breathing. What's your posture? Your breathing. Now we can talk all day on an academic level what defines good posture. For me as a fitness teacher, I'm going to ask you, okay, what's bad posture? Because you can figure out very quickly what's bad posture, right? So avoid that. There's a lot to learn. None of us can know all but there's principles, and the principle is the timeless. Because, well, what's an example of a principle? Okay, your stance. How are you standing? What's the distance? All right, where's your weight balanced? So what's the relationship between your head and your foot, right? So head over foot, which is your gait and your gait mechanics. And, how are you going to grab the kettlebell? Now, what do? Well, you connect your arm to your body. Okay. So now I have my arm and my body. It's a unified theory. Okay. So you're integrating and bringing everything together, the breath, the posture, the movement, your mindset. What are you thinking about? Well, you're thinking about your breath. So what I call the mind, body, breath is the trinity. The cliche mind, body, spirit, right?
Hmm.
We hear that. I say mind, body, breath because now we have clarity on all of it. And the breath is integrating between the mind and the body. That's how I describe it. And so, okay, the thought process, I'll give you a good example with kettlebells. Let's say you're doing, anyone's ever done this, you have an appreciation. It's one of the premier things you can do is you take a kettlebell and you snatch and you do, say, a snatch test. Let's say a 10-minute snatch test if you're serious, a kettlebell sport. If you're recreational, a 5-minute multi-hand. And there's different ways of doing it. They call the military. Military, you can switch hands. Okay. If you're doing the traditional, you can only switch hands one time in the 10-minute period. If you put it down, your set's terminated. So it's how many reps. Okay, so that's going to humble any person, regardless of your level. NFL guys, the greatest athletes in the world. So the point being is that to simplify it for everybody, it's the fundamentals. It's the fundamentals, and it's what I call the timeless.
Yeah.
And so that's what a coach is for. Now we can spend hours talking about what these things are, but it's not complicated if you know what you're doing, right? No knowledge is complicated when you understand it. It's complicated if we see it as outside of ourselves. So, I'm just a fitness guy, right? I'm just a kettlebell guy.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about skill, right? Skill first. Strength is a skill. Breathing is a skill. So these are great concepts and principles, I think, for people to understand. And unfortunately, we just don't see it as much in the fitness space. And most personal trainers that I've seen out there, and I have my other podcast, the Demand Better podcast, where we kind of call out a lot of the things we see in the fitness industry and things we'd like to see changed. And we're trying to educate the consumer about how to navigate this space. And just again, like you mentioned, is it just going to be a 6-week transformation program, or are we actually talking about teaching you a skill so that 6 years from now, 20 years from now, you can be again doing all the things and feeling good. So I definitely love where you're coming from with this. You talk about that holistic, integrated mind body practice, but I'm very curious to hear about how the martial arts piece integrates into all this.
Well, there's my personal experience and my lifetime of practice. Starting on my serious practice at 12 years old. I'm 54, so we can do the math. It's more than 40 years of practice, the martial arts start, but also as a historian and as someone who is a student of all things, because I'm curious. If you're interested in paleontology as I am, or you're interested in anthropology as I am, if we're interested in the origins of humanity and the species of we are the Homo sapiens sapien. So all of that, I have a lot of interest in that. So from the beginning, okay, martial arts, because if we talk about the human development and the fundamental reflexes, as a baby, it's the suckling and the startle. Okay, but the fight flight, we hear about the fight and the flight. So all training, as we can call it, as fitness, or you can call it strength conditioning, but the idea of the physical training, it's to make your body essentially more effective at one of two things, or two things. And it's locomotion, that's the flight, and then it's the martial, which is the fight. So the fight is your back is against the wall, you have nowhere to go, you die, you get eaten, or go through that situation. So or you're out of there, you're out of danger, like mobility, we're moving. I don't know, we're in an age that's so interesting because if we're to be honest, we have to question everything we've been taught as truth. And, you know, so it's like maybe we don't know, or maybe what we believe is, you know, there's missing things, right? There's missing information, that so we can't know everything. Okay. But be humble. I'm saying be humble and consider that what I thought I knew, I'm going to analyze that and see, you know, because it's the speed of life is very fast. The speed of life is very fast. And so, you know, we're talking about fitness and the holistic and the martial art, but the martial art is from the very beginning. So, you know, if you could run faster, or you're better with your punches, your kicks, or whatever, you can throw, you know, weapon, you have a better chance of survival. You get to
Yeah.
eat, you're hunting, you get to eat, or your tribe survives. Like some of them got killed, but a few of you made it out, or we keep going. It's the
Right.
human race. And that's why I don't want to get it. I never will get into discussions about race or any of those things, because it's the human race. The hue, man, the hue is the visible spectrum. The visible spectrum is the hue. And so we're limited as a species. We're not the most of anything. The power is in the collaborative. The power is in the tribal intersection, where we work together, we stop dividing against each other and finding excuses and reasons for difference, because it's all just about the one. And what I teach is in the fitness, it's, I don't know anything else, but I know that if I stand and I breathe and I move, now I have that intersection of the mind, the body, and the breath. Well, we can define that as presence.
Mm.
And that's why I believe physical education is the most important education for me, because if you know a lot of things and you're highly trained, and we're in an age of the intersection of the AI, you know, the computer, and now different people talk, you know, singularity, right? Is there that point in time that we're coming to where there's this equality of the machine and the human, and you know, what's on the other side of that, right? So we're in such an exciting time to live in the information age and the speed of, you know, and so if you don't know something like, for, okay, fitness, if you don't know fitness, well, it's an attention economy, as you referred to. You didn't use that term, but that's how I call it. I call it
Mhm.
the attention economy, because now,
Right.
oh yeah, I'm doing this cool video. None of that matters. It's how can I serve you?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters to anyone watching. It's what can I do to help you? Not look what I can do. You see? And that's where a lot of people fall off of it. It's and the answer to that question is what I said at the beginning. It's the timeless. It's the stuff that's always been true, that's
Hmm.
still true. And there's techniques for all this. There's knowledge for this. How do I stand? Well, you stand like this. How do I breathe? Well, you breathe like this. Well, what if there's the problem here? Well, okay, we have to understand that. It's the same thing like therapy, but from the other side, right? Because you have to understand the issue. You can't pretend, oh, I don't, you know, I don't know, but I'm going to pretend like I know. Now that's bad. And if it's a doctor, it's unethical to the highest degree. But also, if it's a trainer, it's unethical. So there's the same, you know, do no harm is the first ethic, regardless of if you're strength conditioning coach, you know. And we live in a time where it's like our kids, like, who are the coaches that are coaching the children? You see what I'm saying? It's a huge responsibility. And I don't know all the answers personally, but, you know, we have to protect the children of our society first and foremost, because, you know, and so they need to get good education, but it needs to be from people that have a high degree of ethics and have devoted their life to training, and or whatever it is that your profession is. For me, it's that's why I've stayed in fitness the whole time, because there's absolutely zero contradictions in terms of your ethical, or you, there's nothing that I do in my profession that is to harm any other person, you know. And that's
Yeah.
really important to me. Not the what's the thing that I can make the most amount of money. That's never been the driving force. It's always about feeling good, you know. And for me, fitness is easy because I've been doing it my whole life. I've been training martial arts since I was 12 years old. I was one of the first people in kettlebells. I was the first to bring kettlebells all around the world. Now, I'm not a guy that's going to spend time bragging about myself, but most of you don't know me. So, you know, I taught in 70 different countries between 2006 and 2020, right? And the pandemic came in 2020, and all of a sudden we're on the internet, and, you know, the world changed, but it doesn't take away the history of my skill set, right? My skill set's based on the things that I've been doing for a very long time. And that's just related to health and fitness and kettlebells. And, you know, we learn things in our own personal journey. We learn things about ourselves. And that's what the training process, I don't know a lot of things, but I know that I have a regimen that I can follow so that every single day I improve at something.
Yeah.
Every single day I'm developing in some positive way. Now, right now, maybe the jujitsu is my focus in life. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So, in the ideal world, we're going to be excellent at all the important things in life. But in the reality, most of us are only excellent if we're fortunate, and if we, you know, did things well, would be very fortunate to be excellent at one thing in life. You know, so it's like, for me, the fitness is super easy, because it's like, here's what you need to do. And it all starts in your mindset as, don't be afraid of anything. Don't be afraid of getting older. You know, I'm 54 years old. Like, of course, you know, we can't think about, oh man, when I was this age, or no, what do you want to do? It's like, what do you want to do right now for the rest of your life? Right. So it's so exciting to be alive, really. And what I love to promote is helping people to understand how to take care of this. You know, some people call it the meat suit, right? It's not passionate, but if you have that skeptical look in life and you want to say, it's like, okay, it's a meat suit, and that's, you know, I mean, I don't know. People believe different things, right? Is there this grand creator? Like, it's not. We could talk about what I believe, but that's not the point, right? It's we can all think different things, but we share so much more than what we differ. You know, and the human being aspect, that's really prevalent in how I approach the entire process of fitness and training. Because if you're my client, I'm working with you. I'm not working with all the other, you know, so you have to meet individuals where they are, and there begins the relationship of it. And, you know, if I'm just spending all my time, like, I want to have more followers that are like, you know, or whatever. I'm not saying, again, I want you guys to all follow me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't want you to follow me, but, you know, again, I want the quality of the conversation, you know, and certain things are peaking out. And I think the media and stuff that we're using, it's going to be changing rapidly. And we don't know, you know, 5 years, 10 years from now, which ones are still going to be around that were around, certain ones are peaking, maybe, you know. It's like, I want to badmouth any particular social media because I'm on different ones myself, you know, but there's room for improvement in the way that we, you know, interact. And certain social media kind of move more towards like, look at me, you know. It's like, look, I'm not going to take my shirt off every time just because, like, all this, well, I'm a
but it
fitness
works,
guy.
Steve. But it works.
Well, I guess, you know, but my son, he's 20. When I was 20, yeah, I was wanting, you know, because I was looking for something. I'm not still looking for that anymore. You know, it's like, as a man, I would say men need to grow up. I'm not going to speak for everyone's society, but I'll just say, as myself, identifying as a man, men do need to grow up. We cannot stay children and be like, you're 40 years old, you know, or whatever it is. So, you know,
I am 40. How did you know?
Well, yeah, we're old enough, right? We're
Yeah.
old enough. And I'm not super caught up in numbers. I started jujitsu when I was 48 years old. Now I'm 54. I've been training for a little over 6 years, so I love it. I love it. And it's something that every single day I can go to class and I'm learning. So if you're the best guy in the place you're training in the wrong place. Like you have to be able to keep learning in life. And that's why I love the simplicity of the martial arts, is because in the martial arts, it's, well, I will put a caveat on that. The martial sports, because we live in a different society now. So really it's the martial sports, and I'm realistic about it. It's like, I like jujitsu, but if you don't like jujitsu, well, then it's not really interesting. And so the point is there's no one style that is all things,
Right.
It's what you like. It's what you like and what you gravitate towards. And there's the overlap of what's called fitness as an umbrella term. What is it actually defining? Like that word is
Well,
really
let's put you on the spot then. How do you define fitness?
well, we have to have, if we're going to have an academic conversation, then I think we would have to, I think Darwin's is still in play. I think Darwin's definition is still in play, where the ultimate, what is fitness, is the recreation or the ability to recreate. Now that may be, I don't know if is it politically incorrect? I can't keep track to have that conversation, but that's what I think that's a workable definition that's already in play that I could just piggyback on. Okay. My definition, okay, that could be different. So I have my own definition for me, but it doesn't mean that if we're going to have a conversation, it's the same definition, right? For me, the fitness is, can I do all the things that I want to do? Now there may be limitations. Maybe there's a financial limitation. I want to do this thing over here and I can't afford to do it. Right. So, but in terms of like the physical, we this is the thing that I know I can look after this. So, for me, it's jujitsu. That's easy. Like I want to be able to keep training and stay healthy. That means you're not getting injured. If you do get injured, well, what's your strategy for healing? Or do you have a team that you can leverage, like Dr. Bo, for example? Can you have a look at, right? So
I get a lot of BJJ and injuries for sure all the time.
Yeah, compression. I mean, I have formula. I like to use the Chinese herbs, and that's what I keep. When I was a kid, I was doing the Chinese kung fu. Now I like the jiu-jitsu more. But the point is that all the different cultures and all the different evolutions, they have their assets, they have their strengths, the things they specialize in, and so we become specialists. And depending on the specialty that you focus on, certain specialties have more general applications than others. So, and there's a lot involved in that in terms of the economics of these things. When you talk about medicine, or you talk about even, business and branding, or fitness, kettlebells is a perfect example. Oh, I'm a kettlebell trainer. Well, what's the difference between a kettlebell trainer and a personal trainer? Like, see what I'm saying? Like, there's specializations, and my career, my body of work, in terms, you search for me on Google, and like that's around the kettlebell, because I've been with the kettlebell and so the way that I understand kettlebell is martial arts, because it's a handheld tool, it's an extension. And so in the martial arts, they talk about the hand and the extension of the hand. So an implement or a tool or a weapon. Again, application. Is it a tool? Is it an implement? Is it a weapon? It can be all three.
Well, I know you're not advocating for using it as a weapon, but to your point, to your point, it's the skill of using something external, and then being able to, when you do have a sword or spear in your hand, then you have that physical capacity to utilize that.
I'll bring up a controversial thing, like name drop. It's not just before I even say it, I'll just say that I don't follow or advocate anyone, whether they're famous or not famous. Like, but sometimes we can name drop a famous person and, well, a lot of people have heard of them. So a lot of people have heard that or probably seen that clip of Jordan Peterson talking about how a man should be dangerous. You know the one I'm referring to? That's a
Hmm.
very popular clip, right? So in that sense, in principle, I understand that. I understand that. And from a personal point of view, it's like, yes, um, we as individuals, we live in a community, but we define our individual space. That's our space. And so whoever's in that is by invitation only. Okay.
Hmm.
So, shall it cross over that? Well, again, there's techniques and strategies and what you can call situational awareness, right? If you get yourself into trouble, it's because that's where you deserve to be. However, the point being is that I would rather play it as a sport, knowing that there's carryover from the sport to where now it's not a sport, now it's real, because somebody in the dog park didn't like the fact that his dog was trying to bully my little puppy, and my girl I was with kicked that dog, and now you know what I'm saying. So like, get away from my puppy. And self-defense is self-defense. So
Hmm.
we have a right as human beings, so it's, I don't know if that's controversial. it, where do we draw the line ideologically? See what I'm saying? Like political stuff, right? Like, okay, I'm liberal or I'm conservative, right? All these different, like, is this basic things? And we've lost track of a lot of that in society with the rapid, with X and all these different media outlets where people can express themselves behind this thing, behind this wall, right, and give opinions. And it's like we got to be able to hold it down. So how do you hold it down? Well, it's through the physical education. I'm going to be your coach, and I'm going to help the whole of society that wants to learn. But here's the thing, there is no shortcut to the skill, because your skill is the thing that always stays with you at all times. And so when we talk about fitness, again, it's not the transformation. It is a transformation, but it's a transformative process that never ends because it continues to transform over time. And the values can also change, right? And I would like to think as we get older, we distill the values. Well, the family, for me, that's going to be at the top of your points. So people can define those things for themselves. And I just think that I'm excited because it takes like 2 generations to really metamorphosize or transform into the vision. And
Hmm.
so if the vision is to finally get past, all the wars and all the, like, the economy of the industrial age, where we're still like pumping out the oils and we're still doing that when we really don't need to do it anymore. We really don't. It's just the interests are not, see what I'm saying? There's competing interests. And so, but as a civilization, as a humans, like, we all want the same things. We want the water, clean food, clean water, honest, good medicine, right? People should have access to that. So, you know, we got to get on track. And it's like, what's the way to do it? Well, I want all the children and all the societies to learn the physical education, because you need to learn how to stand, breathe, move. And there's a discipline in that. There's a discipline, and we need discipline as a society, because if you can't control your own body, you're not going to be able
Hmm.
to control your mind. And the
Yeah.
emotional balance comes into play with this, because everything is, again, we're we can't know everything as an individual, but we've understand a lot about the human dynamics. We understand
Hmm.
about the human biology. We understand that there's an interplay with the nervous system and the endocrine system and the skeletal system and all
Right.
these different systems, the respiratory system and the cardiopulmonary and all these different. So how do we harness that? And the only way we can really harness it is through the physical education.
Well, I think we know the science. It's
Yes,
just the science is very clear. I think there's people get into the nitty gritty and about, well, should we be diaphragmatic breathing all the time? Should we be nasal breathing this often? I had my friend David from Bidler from Physiology First up in Maine. They're a nonprofit, and they just they get high school kids really targeted in their space. And he had a great quote that said, skills before pills, because so many of those kids get put on ADHD medication and attention deficit type things, and it's
so
yeah yeah, and they just say, hey, get in here, learn how to breathe.
yes,
And he kind of had some work with Andrew Huberman and things like that, where it was let's get these guys a breathing license before they get a driver's license, because if they can't control their physiology and regulate that kind of stuff, then we're gonna have problems. And we see that time and time again manifest as chronic disease later on, and all that. And I think that's a lot of the intersection of what we're talking about here. But I guess that's the question. I don't know if you have ideas. Let's brainstorm it now. Let's fix this whole thing
yes,
now.
I do have ideas. I do
How do
have
we
ideas.
how do we get this stuff implemented? Obviously,
Every child needs to start having physical education.
yeah.
Now, that really what we need, good citizens that truly want a future that is filled with empowered individual. We've already proven that we can create more. We've already proven that humans, we have the capacity and collaboration to be able to create more. We can have clean water. We can have clean food. We can have clean air. We can stop sending our kids to fight bankers' wars. All these things that you talk to people and you ask them, they don't want that. Nobody wants that. People want peace. People want peace. People want prosperity. So there has to be fundamental agreements. And so the things that we can agree upon, we can agree that we want, you know, clean air, clean food, shelter. Like this is, I was born and raised in America. I've been to, 70 countries around the world, been a lot, interacted a lot of different cultures and seen a lot of things, you know, but I was born and raised in the United States. And, San Diego's a beautiful city, but you go to San Diego and many cities, like we see what's going on where there's, it's a, it's not something that we can just continue to allow for that to play out
Hmm.
until it's, and so what is the solution to these things? And I think the solution honestly is that there has to be a long-term sacrifice. There has to be the recognition that the older people, all they have is what their wisdom and what they want to leave behind. The ones in the middle, like me, we're still young and strong enough to make a difference, but we're not young enough to start out with all the correct, right? And so it's the generation that's like my children and what's going to be their children. My youngest child is 20. I have three children, 25, 22, and 22 girls and a boy. So that generation and the generation that follows, that's 40 years. So that's what it takes, because that's what it takes to collapse a civilization. So that's what it takes to build the civilization back, and it's like, um, we all can do our part. So for my part, it's really straightforward. I just help people to learn how to strengthen themselves, to learn how to take more control over their physical education. And what does that mean? Is it kettlebells is a great tool, but I didn't come on just to sell my programs. It's a real conversation.
Yeah.
Kettlebells is like godsend, because we can do it quick and we can do it right here, right now. You don't need any additional memberships outside of that. Once you have the correct knowledge, now it's for the rest of, time. That's what I said at the beginning, timeless. Like, if you really understand fitness, you don't need a coach after your basic training period is over. The rest is just relationship, because now that's different if you're an athlete or you have specific objectives in athletics, because then you need to have a coach and a team to there's different levels to different games. You're in the game over here, but there's recreational fitness, right? There's recreational fitness. It depends on the level of the audience. If we're talking people that have diseases, right? If we're talking about disease, now just being able to stand up out of a chair or to sit up out of a laying position, right? This is like a major victory. And then from there to stand up and now to ambulate. And so we can never assume, and fitness becomes very shallow as an industry. And I see that the industrialization now I really think it's an economic model is what's creating the disease, because the economic model itself is it corrupts the things that it touches. You know, per the food industry, per the medical industry, per the you name it. Like, why are these very important things all becoming corrupted? It's because of the business model in place. And now I'm not an economist. It's not my job to rewrite the and so what's the intersection of like legislation? Are we going to continue to vote for these like is it the candidates or is it the system? Like, what where are we falling short? And I don't have all the answers. I am an activist just for truth and dignity and integrity for the individual. And honestly, I don't choose sides in politics. It's like, why should I have an opinion? Well, let me correct that. Okay, why should I have a super passionate opinion where I'm willing to get in arguments, or I'm willing, like, about if someone wants to identify in a certain way, like that doesn't impact me personally. And regardless of if you like or don't like something, there's still a human being there. They can have whatever color hair or it's a complex world that we live in, and it's like guilt. Talk about guilt. Like you now you need to feel guilty if you're of a certain body size, or if you're a certain ethnicity. It's like, come on, like there's so many corrections that are going on in the media. And it really draws the attention away from what we can do, and what we have to start with our own physical education, because in the training process itself is the cultivation of the character. And again, it's not for me.
Nope. Steve, we lost your audio. I can't hear you. Something went off there. I don't know if you got a ding. He's having some technical difficulties. Let's see if we get him corrected. Nope, still can't hear you. Lost your audio. Well, we can wrap it up here then. Steve, we can hopefully touch base offline. Let's see, tried to on off. Did that do anything? Nope, I don't hear you. All right. we're gonna end the stream here. I can't hear you, Steve. All right.